In 1983, a small team published a series of groundbreaking video games, including Archon: The Light in the Dark, a combat game that's a bit like chess. Over 40 years later, the computer geeks who build themselves as electronic artists are better known as the company EA. EA is one of America's largest gaming brands, but now that video game firm has been co-opted for an even bolder mission: to dominate the entire gaming industry. To listen to the whole episode, you can click the link in the description below.
Electronic Arts, which is America's third biggest gaming company, is being bought for $55 billion in a group being led by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. This is part of a multi-billion-dollar push into gaming for the kingdom. That industry, the gaming industry, is now worth more than cinema, streaming or music. And Saudi Arabia is quickly becoming a big player in this new industry.
Tom, what is a video game superpower? What does that look like for Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think for Saudi Arabia, it really just means that they now own or have large stakes in a very large number of the kind of household names when it comes to video gaming. So they own this entity called Savvy Games, which has been given a $38 billion war chest to build a kind of gaming empire. Savvy has built a company called Scopely, which makes a mobile game called Monopoly Go. It's bought the gaming arm of Niantic, which makes the Pokemon mobile games. But then it also has big stakes in lots of other gaming companies. It's got a big stake in Embracer, which owns IPs including Tomb Raider. And the Public Investment Fund is one of the biggest shareholders in companies like Nintendo, in Take-Two, which makes Grand Theft Auto, Capcom, Nexon, NC Soft. You know, really, if you think of a big name in gaming, it's pretty likely these days that Saudi Arabia owns a large chunk of it.
So what's in it for the country? Why does it want all these gaming companies?
I think there's a few reasons. I mean, one reason, funnily enough, is that Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince, is himself a huge fan of gaming. He is said to be a big fan of FC, which used to be called FIFA, which is one of the big franchises owned by Electronic Arts. So I think his personal enthusiasm is one reason for this. He has said that he wants to create a kind of Disney of video games. And one way of looking at this is that where Disney has its theme parks, Saudi Arabia wants to have an equivalent in the form of sort of live gaming experiences through esports meaning competitive gaming. And they've bought a couple of big esports companies, ESL and Faceit. They're two big companies that run these contests. They bought those a few years ago for $1.5 billion, and Saudi Arabia now controls about 40% of the global esports industry.
Surely there's more to it, though, than MBS's love of gaming.
Yeah, very much so. I think one big thing that they have said they want to try and do is to really try and create a new domestic industry here. Saudi Arabia, as you know, has got this ongoing project to try and diversify its economy away from the oil industry, which is one day going to run out. And they see gaming as a good way of doing this. They hope that by 2030 they will have created 39,000 jobs in the gaming industry. And they're not there yet, but they're on their way. They've recently formed an agreement with one of the local women's universities to train lots of students there in gaming design. And they clearly see this as a source of future jobs and future economic growth for a world in which the oil has run out.
It's about more than diversification, though, isn't it, as well, Tom? Saudi's been accused of sports washing when it comes to sailing, golf, tennis, football, you name it, they're trying to get the sports played there. Is this game washing?
It could be. I mean, I think this is a really interesting side of it. They obviously they say this isn't part of the plan, but gaming is becoming a really important media business. As we mentioned, it's already bigger than cinema, than streaming, than music. And so if you control the video games business or large chunks of it, you are going to have some pretty serious soft power, if you like. I think Saudi Arabia also sees an opportunity to sort of project a different kind of image and to perhaps project a bit more of the region's culture. There are 330 million Arabic-speaking gamers these days. That's more than in all of Western Europe or in the United States. And they're currently not all that well catered for. And I think a lot of people see opportunity to create games using that region's stories. You know, in the gaming business, they talk about lore from a particular country or region. And a lot of people in Saudi Arabia, when I spoke to them about this, cited China as an example of a country that has been really successful in using its own national myths and legends and turning them into games. Just last year, there was a Chinese-made game called Black Myth Wukong, which has been a huge international success. And that has lent very heavily on Chinese myths and legends and has helped to popularize them overseas. And so I think the kind of future end game, and this is some years off, but one possible future that they see is trying to do something similar with the myths and legends of the Middle East, and perhaps trying to project a slightly different kind of story from Saudi Arabia.
Also political reasons in China for projecting its myths and legends. Tom, how will this change the games themselves?
It's an interesting question. I think that Hollywood is perhaps a possible comparison that you can make here. If you look at the way that the international film business has evolved over the last couple of decades, China has become a really important market there. And as it has become one, a lot of Hollywood studios have rather shied away from some of the subjects that are difficult subjects in China. So films like 7 Years in Tibet, made in the 1990s, it's hard to see something like that being made today. And a lot of people wonder if something similar could happen in the games industry. So with Electronic Arts, for example, games like The Sims embrace LGBT themes. You can have two gay characters who get married. And some people have said, is this going to stop now? I think the answer is probably not. I don't think we're going to see a sort of immediate Saudification of beloved Western franchises. But I think we might see a bit more of a kind of Saudi accent on some games. There are a couple of interesting examples of this already. Ubisoft, which is a French company that makes the Assassin's Creed franchise, recently announced that the next set of levels for Assassin's Creed are going to be set in Saudi Arabia, in a city that Saudi Arabia is currently trying to promote as a tourist destination, in fact. And there was a funny example recently where fans of Fatal Fury, which is a Japanese-made fighting game, they were a bit surprised when it was announced that the latest character in this game was going to be Cristiano Ronaldo, a Portuguese footballer. And there's a possible Saudi explanation for that as well. Fatal Fury is made by a company which is now majority owned by a Saudi foundation. And Ronaldo is the captain of a football team in Saudi Arabia, which again is majority owned by the Public Investment Fund. So we might see more and more of these tie-ups in future as Saudi Arabia's influence in the gaming industry increases.
Tom, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you.